So welcome everybody. The movie was terrific. If you got to see it, the movie was great. Yeah. Well, they're poets. They're herding cats and poets, right? Hey, Pegi. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Joseph Varela. I'm the director of the Connecticut Literary Festival. We're really here today thanks to Margaret Gibson, our poet laureate. Please welcome him. She did the lion's share of the work for today, and I'm glad she called me to organize it. So I want to thank her. I want to thank C2 Humanities. C2 Humanities supports all of our programming, and they've been very flexible with a very weird COVID year. We are streaming this today, so that's fun. It'll be archived on our website probably really fast. Everything happens fast these days. So it's the film was terrific. It was one of those environmental films where you feel great, and then you feel like crap, and then you want to plant a tree. But I started listing the trees that I planted recently on my farm, and today we actually planted a tree in the park across the street, not in memory of, but because of Will Wilkins, the director of Real Artways, and his 30 years of service to the neighborhood. So thank you, and it was good to be part of that today. So I'm going to introduce the Poet Laureate of the state. We have a full day of programming, and it's going to end actually with a conversation and reading with Margaret and Dan Donahue as Margaret's term as Poet Laureate ends at the end of the month. So we're here to celebrate that also. So everyone, Margaret Gibson.
Shaky up here. Can you all hear me all right? Yeah. Okay. I wanted to also let you know that when there aren't programs going on in here, there are videos of poets reading around the corner, Connecticut poets. So there are food trucks around, and your books are being sold if you brought them out by Riverbend. And Grayson Books has a table just behind you. So it's a real festival of the word and the power of the word to preserve the earth. And I am so happy to see all of you. It feels, in a way, for me, like coming home, this event. I don't know how to explain that except that oikos, ecology, means home, that the earth is our home. And I think of poets on this planet, and particularly, hi Rhonda, poets in this anthology as a family. Maybe that's because I read so many poems and got you all together, but I do think of you as a family, and it's just really an enormous pleasure for me to get the family together back here on Earth Day and to hear some of the poems. Now, it's not the whole family. There's 63 poets in this book, and there are wonderful poets who didn't send in poems and aren't in the book, but Connecticut is rich with poets, and I think it's one of, it just makes me very happy to think about that and to see you here. With that, saying that, I'm going to introduce Julia Paul, who from Riverwood, who is the host organization for this part of today's events. Let me invite you all to stay for as many of the events today as you can. Let's just enjoy being with each other and others who will be coming in on this beautiful day. Julia. Well, Waking Up to the Earth is the anthology that everyone will be reading a poem from today. I think we all know about it. This is an anthology which is organized by poem, not by poet. As I said, there are 63 Connecticut poets represented in it. I was able to get it together because of a grant from the Academy of American Poets, and then work with Ginny and Grayson Books to actually have it here. I think the quality of the work is amazing in this book, and I just want to get down from here and start listening to you read. So I'm going to stop.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see flesh and bone for a change. I'm Julia Paul. I am president of the Riverwood Poetry Series, and so happy to be here. For those who don't know, Real Artways is actually our home. We do a reading series here. Before COVID, we were in person on the second Tuesday of every month, except for the summer months. And, you know, just fell in love with our Real Artways audience. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we had to resort to Zoom. We have one more Zoom reading of this particular poetry season. So in May, the second Tuesday in May, we're presenting the finalists and the winner of the Connecticut Book Award in Poetry. So we have 4 readers, I think 4, lined up for that. So you need to register. Real Artways, you know, helps us with all the technology and running that Zoom. So if you register, everything will go smoothly. So we really look forward to seeing some new faces for that reading, and hopefully here in person starting next September if the world and diseases cooperate. So we're putting on, or producing, whatever, this section of the reading by introducing poets whose work appears in this fabulous anthology. So I'd like to call up our first reader, Denise Abercrombie.
Hi everybody, so nice to be here again in person and to be among the readers of this wonderful collection that Margaret really wove together. Such a tapestry and such a privilege to be part of it. And it was wonderful to see the film that really kind of, I felt, was a preface for my poem, which was a beautiful film about the forests. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth your time. I hail from the last Green Valley, Eastern Connecticut, and our signature tree, I guess, which I pass on Route 44, a sign that says the Ashford Oak, and for years I just passed by it. I never really gave it much thought, and I kind of think of Connecticut as, you know, the charter oak, the signature tree. So on my birthday, my husband said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "You know, I want to go see the Ashford Oak." Never seen it. And so this poem was inspired just by kind of just off the highway, as James Wright would say. Ashford Oak. Praise the spider at the center of her web, standing vigil in your shadow. Praise your lightning scars and splits, see-through twists, the rotting pulp of your boughs. Praise to the impossible lift, tonnage of your hollowed-out heartwood. To leaves that sprout and cling in spite of gypsy moths, honey fungus, and winds. Praise. Praise to stewards who protected and pruned, arborists with their cables, sprays and feed, loggers and farmers who found you too gnarled or sprawling to fell. Praise bare branches, dark-ridged bark, overgrown with trumpet vine, and praise your fallen crown. Let poison ivy and briars overtake your many rings. Let raspberries ripen near your sunlit roots. Praise to surrendering this sanctuary to brambles. Praise this final bit of shade. You know, if you go to the Ashford Oak, I think you'll experience kind of what was kind of a big deal. People would drive out to see this amazing tree, but trees even in their decline are quite amazing wonders. And speaking of amazing wonders, I'd like to introduce Christine Beck, our next poet.
did not pay Denise to say that. But I'm going to pay her for the next one. And for those of you who are interested, I'm going to be reading at the Poetry Rocks, which is sponsored by Pegi and Shea. She's here in the audience. And that will be on May 15th on a Sunday. So anybody who wants to come out, I would love to see you. I'm going to read a poem. Before I begin my poem, I'm going to read a poem by Maria Sassi. Maria Sassi was the first town poet laureate of West Hartford, Connecticut. I have also been a follow-on poet laureate of the town of West Hartford. And as far as I know, she actually was the first town poet laureate in Connecticut. I think there's some dispute about New Haven, but we're going to let that rest for today. Maria is a bit of a shut-in these days, and she's going through a tough time, and so I wanted to read this poem from her signature book, Rare Grasses, which came out recently from Antrim House. I would love to read that poem for her. And this is it, Rare Grasses. Oh, we've listened to the singing grass, the way the learned singer wrote sermons in sun and soft rain, whispered lores, promised healings from palms near a river, woven cradle for the found child. Spreading earth held the tangled roots. Blue spangles grew on blades of green, and we rolled in them down hills of Seton Park, whirling our sky around us, now rarely seen. Once we believed the opening to heaven was blue as the flowering stars of the grass. Our bodies of light would rise on their scented waves. And that's Maria Sassi. My poem is called Field Service. It was inspired by a term of art, field service, when I was a Jehovah's Witness between the ages of 10 and 17, meant going out knocking on doors to proselytize, to convert people with the coming war of Armageddon. But I love double entendre in poetry, and so field service, I hope, stands for something else here as well. Field service. In my teenage years, instead of shopping at the mall, I spent my Saturdays selling leaflets door to door. My mission was to announce the coming war of Armageddon, when everyone who wasn't saved would face a fiery death. We called it field service. I recall those years one Sunday in Vermont as I embarked down a meandering country lane. I found a field of green alfalfa. It grows beneath a row of pines that seem to guard the tender shoots like ministers or wise men. Nearby, an ancient graveyard lies locked behind a picket fence, festooned with black-eyed Susans, the headstones smoothed by weather and the years. I rest beneath the comfort of the trees, breathe in the incense of the fields, where no one knows if you are saved or damned. Amidst the harmony of growing things, I plant my past beneath the earth and sing the praise of pines. Thank you. And I have the privilege of announcing a dear friend, a fellow partner in poetry, the publisher of Grayson Books, and the former president of the Connecticut Coalition of Poets Laureate. Please welcome Ginny Connors.
Hi everybody, great to be here on Earth Day, beautiful day. I'm going to read My poem is called Stone Harvest, and it's about the stone walls that you can find in various parts of Connecticut, which I think are rich in history and beautiful in themselves. It is in 6 little sections. Stone Harvest. 1. Fields return to forest. Years ago the farmers left, but stone walls remember them. Miles of walls in disrepair. What a crop of stones those farmers had. I doubt they found beauty in them, just more hard labor. But I admire the tumbled walls meandering in autumn sun and shadow. History's here among the clutter of leaves, curling vines and fallen logs. Islands of pale lichen bloom on the stone's rough surfaces, and soft green moss invites my touch. 2. New England potatoes, they call them, Satan's seeds, the harvest of stones heaved up by frost, by roots, by burrowing critters each year in fields once cleared. Another endless chore to toss them to the edges of fields, or pile rocks on stone sled let the oxen pull. Heaps of stone turned into boundary walls, packed together with uprooted stumps and wooden rails, built and rebuilt with increasing care. Men laid stones 1 on 2 or 2 on 1 like brickwork, capped with flat field stones. Sheep high, bull strong, hog tight. 3. The rocks are flecked with mica, mineral streaked, with rivulets dark or light. They keep company with bindweed, bits of wood, seeds, and leaves. Rest amid ferns and pokeweed. A few are blackened, stained perhaps by campfires centuries ago, when bands of people roamed these woods but had no need for walls. Unplowed, the topsoil then was so thick with humus, most stones stayed buried, secrets in the soil. 4. When I rest my palms against a rock, I feel the heat is holding, but these stones hold memories of glaciers. Huge ice sheets that scraped the earth and carved out slabs of bedrock. The ice retreated slowly, dropping stones along the way. 5. Storm-tossed trees have fallen on the walls. Roots and vines nudge them apart. Seeds fall into crevices, hidden there by chipmunks, mice, squirrels. Young trees take roots and grow between the rocks, squeezing them apart. The new must push against the old, and storms take some of us down. The plot of every history, but remnants of wall are still here, weathered and leached, eroded and stained. The stones marvelous in their variety, their stubborn persistence. 6. I touch a mossy stone tumbled near the dirt road where I'm walking. Finger its scratches and stains. My skin carries its own share of creases, marks, and scars after so many years of living, loving, working. What more can I ask but that I've been of some use before it's my turn to fall away and settle into whatever may come next. So that was my poem. And Cortney Davis was not able to make it today, but she was initially supposed to read, so I'd like to read her poem, which is called Turtle. Not quite crushed by the car, she waited, the intricate tile of her shell cracked open, exposing the deep red of liver, shiny globe of lung, a string of tissue pulled out by the eggs that popped from her on impact, the soft white insides webbed with a net of vessels still pulsed. She was an old turtle, old friend, trying to dig her nest in the driveway. She held up her head while her thick clawed feet swam on the gravel, and she turned to see who was kneeling beside her. It took such a long time, sun and ants called by blood, small gnats to be kept away from the warm smell of her. The sun went down in a humid fog, and still she moved when touched. Her eyes sank a little into the green leather of her face. She scanned the world as if to memorize the peony's sweetest scent, the June heat, the shiny mica in the gravel ground into her underflesh, and the damp clumps of last year's leaves I settled over her before I carried her off to a mossy, softer place, as if I could make amends in those hours when I knelt and let her see. Sister, I said, I did it. It was me. That was Cortney's poem. And next up will be the marvelous poet Pat Hale.
Hello, it's wonderful to see everybody and to get up onto the stage without totally humiliating myself. My name's Pat Hale. I'm a poet, and like many of you, I've spent the last 2 years in my house looking out the window at the world outside and seeing that it went on just fine without us and despite us, and probably better because we weren't there. So that's what I've been writing about for the last couple of years. But in 2016, I took a workshop with then U.S. Poet Laureate Juan Felipe Herrera, and he had us, he gave us huge pieces of paper and told us to scribble on them, and we had to do that forever. And then we wrote legends based on that. And this is the poem that came out of that. A brief history of everything. Rain. Rain fell for a long time and then it stopped. Rain fell until the ground was washed away and us with it. Then the bird came. Flight. We could all fly and speak the simple language of birds. This is important, the bird said. Remember this, a sharpness of that beak against the ear. Feathers. Another storm, another night, another sea of churning clouds. Hold on, the bird said, and then there were wings reaching out to us. Advice. Let go, the bird said, and we did, but we were afraid. And still the rain kept falling, and us again with it, into the canyon, down to where the river flowed. Recovery. When the storm stopped, the river ran clear, the sun came out. We were amazed. Of course, the bird said, the sun always comes back. Separation. Birds in the air, birds in the cliffs, all watching as we tried to remember the language they'd taught us. It came back, but only to some, and they flew away. Exile. The rest of us remained behind, earthbound with our heavy feet. Unvoiced, scrabbling in the mud, we made symbols with our sticks and called them words. Thank you. Next up is Debbie Gilbert, a wonderful poet. Who's going to help me get down. Thank you.
We had that worked out. Hi. I'm Debbie Gilbert. I'm really glad to be here with you this afternoon when it's such beautiful sunshine. Most of the time, including in this book, I'm written up as D. Walsh Gilbert, but everybody can call me Debbie. So, I live in Farmington. My house is kind of tucked up against one of the NPC reservoirs. And we see bats all the time. As a matter of fact, we kind of knew when the bats were around because they would come by and drink up all of the sugar water in the hummingbird feeder. So the next morning we would wake up and the feeder would be completely dry, and even if we hadn't seen any bats, we knew that they were around. Well, little by little we started seeing and noticing fewer and fewer of them. And we were told, and we learned that they had gotten some kind of a respiratory illness, something in their nose and all, and the whole colonies were collapsing. But glad to say that lately, as of last summer anyway, we were seeing more and more of them. So I was very happy because they're so incredibly important as pollinators, and so we really wanted to encourage them, and I was very happy to write a poem of praise for the bats. Of course, I had to put it on the page so that it was right, justified, because it's a little bit backwards, and that's what bats do. It's called Bats. Who will praise them? Who will praise the woodland bats hanging from the stand of trees on Talcott Mountain? The soundless ones, the ones who nurse their pups, the size of thimbles, who laud the dark, the moonless nights and fog and rain, who snatch and swallow biting ticks and flying bugs, and pollinate while sipping amber nectar. Praise the mysterious, the toothed ones, the skin-winged and eared, who hear what we cannot, who cling to bending branches, who shelter from weasel and snake, and roost slip-knotted to their colony. Praise the little brown bat, the pipistrelle and silver-haired, who navigate magnetic fields and warm-blooded ghosts, who, upside down, locate the world. So, incredibly important, despite their scary reputation and all of the affiliation they've had with COVID. So, and now I'd like to introduce our next poet, my friend, Joan Hofmann.
Well, good, there's a step here. I was looking at what was I going to do with that challenge. Oh dear. I must tell you, I recently experienced an eye challenge. So I thought my biggest challenge of this afternoon was going to be making the print large enough that I'd be able to read to you. And then when I started to see what was happening over here, I was like, oh no. My depth perception is like, whoosh. So anyway, Joan Hofmann, I'm a Riverwood board member and the inaugural Poet Laureate of Canton, Connecticut. And it's a real pleasure. I gotta tell you, we miss this place, Riverwood Poets. You know, the second Tuesday of every month for years we've been here at Real Artways. And in this gallery, and to be at this podium, this is like, feels so unusual, but not. I'm so glad. So thanks for the opportunity, Margaret, to be able to be here today. I bring my voice here in this medley with a poem titled The Takedown. And here, an individual story serves to tell a larger story of so-called progress at the expense of the environment. So as Joni Mitchell once wrote and sang, they paved a paradise and put up a parking lot. I live in the Farmington, near the Farmington River, in the historic area of Collinsville. And that's just a few towns west of Hartford for the geographically disoriented. Recently, an 1850 home, I live in an 1840 home, and an 1850 home that's just up the hill from me, across the road, up the hill, across the street from me was sold. And it turned out that with some new zoning regulations, unbeknownst to the seller, allowed for the contiguous land to be a buildable lot. So the poem describes what I experienced on the day of watching the land that I've lived next to and the canopy that I've lived under, had lived under, for nearly 40 years. Really thought that would always be there, much longer than me. Not one, but two houses seem to fit on that lot and meet the regulations, each with 2 apartments. So yes, there is a parking lot. The takedown. I watched the giants felled one after another and another, and the clearing took hours. For hours, I watched in horror an efficiency of decimation. In a single day, the lot next to me transformed from an assurance of green-frilled, broad canopy, sustained by 60-foot high trunks, a beauty of curved bark stalks, into a cleared space. The maples now gone, and until now, unseen interior is exposed. Is this awkward gawking addictive or just inherited? Stunned, I'm both curious and crestfallen. I'm not the only one disoriented. Like fingernails of dirt, some things you just can't forget. The choo-choo-choo of the cardinal, the silhouette of the maples at daybreak, the mating pileated woodpeckers, the hoot, hoot, hoot of the lone owl, the bone chill noise of the chainsaw, the split crack and thud of the drops, the story's high pile of brush, such a light word for huge limbs that shook earth today, the scream ring of the chipper grinding. Everyone's nest has been upended. In the silence of emptiness, under spareness of a too blue sky, a scatter of sparrows arrives, one bird after another, to make a necklace
on the top of the new chain link fence. Each stands facing the same direction, toward the now barren space of the uprooted, the missing. And so we carry on. Oh, it's just so beautiful. I hope we get to spend more time in this room too. There's so many things still yet to occur. I invite Beck up to the podium, the wonderful Julia. No? Who am I inviting? Who else wonderful? Susannah. Oh my goodness. Susannah. How did I do that? Well, I only met Susannah Lawrence today, so we'll both enjoy her together.
Hi, I'm Susannah Lawrence, and I'm a poet from the northwest corner. So this is my first time here. Fun to be here. I love the photographs that are up. Anyway, it's great to see everybody. So since I was a little girl, I've been privileged enough to sleep on a sleeping porch. And which means you're right out there and you hear the owls and the coyotes and the rain and the storms. And sometimes, most of the time it's wonderful, but it can also be a little scary from time to time. And of course, one scary thing kind of magnifies into another. So this is called Storm Advisory. Do you hear that wind? Bees, thousands of bees. Do you think the red oak is safe? Something heavy moved out there, roused, I'm sure of it. How can you sleep? The dogs barked at the east window, raced to the north one, won't settle. What do they know? The wind's tearing at the trees, shredding them in pieces. When I shake your shoulder, it feels loose. Clouds barrel past, strobe the moon, dark again. No lights in the valley. Is our power on? I'm going to wake you. Isn't that the siren? Isn't it going on too long? I can barely hear over the wind. It sounds like fire roar. What happened last time? What did they do? Did we ever find those instructions? Oh, there's the rain. It smells strange. Oil, plastic, not like wet grass. Aren't you awake yet? So many trees in danger. You're mumbling. I can't read your face. Better to stay, to go. Did you lock the door? I'm trying to remember when we planted the basswood, the 2 birches, the elm for Owen. They're okay, aren't they? You still love me, don't you? There it is again, closer. Did you hear it this time? Will no one tell us when? Will no one say where it's safe? We did everything we could, didn't we? Didn't we? The next reader is Julia Paul.
With Riverwood Poetry Series, as I told you. I am first going to read a poem by Amy Nawrocki because she unfortunately is unable to be here with us today. So I am reading her poem called Arboriculture. I'm sure the red mulch spread beneath the dormant azalea has in its loamy peat the macerated remnants of a massive Louisiana cypress. I know it in my bones. Somewhere in the swamps, an ancient colossus towering hundreds of feet was filled with the unheard echo of a stolen temple bell. The harvested trophy died again at the mill, chomped to confetti by the grimacing false teeth of a machine. I suffer the russet sin with my arms elbow deep in agriculture as I distribute the ground cover around sweet William and verbena blossoms in the front yard. I'm hardly as wicked as those. Their plastic trays were purchased from the farm stand where tiny, ripe, organic strawberries pleased my lips and sour cherries melted like wine lozenges in my mouth. I spit the pits out the car window on the drive home, but I am wicked to the core. And today the supermarket is closer to the mail drop and the library where mediocre books, half read, are overdue. And those bags of the dirty fill stacked on the concrete walkway near the store seem so utilitarian, so earthy and convenient. Plus, I hate the weeds which the bag promises to squelch, and the neighbor with her elegant box gloves and blooming geraniums is really to blame for this. But I cannot lose the swamp cypresses from my mind. Those conifers, these sacred fellows holding the soil in with their gracious roots, exhaling with delicate silence. I feel like God doling out the floodwaters, my bloody hands handsomely disguised by garden gloves. I am a fraud, a pirate, and when the levees break again, I will sink into counterfeit soil and drown. Amy Nawrocki, and ironically, her poem seems to lead into mine a little bit. The last word of hers is drown, and you'll hear that word in my poem. And just relevant to Earth Day, I can claim to have been at the very first Earth Day celebration at the mall in Washington, D.C. With my friend from high school, and recently came across the picture that my sister, Polaroid, that she took of us, and here we are with our headbands on and our bell bottoms, smoking our cigarettes. Very cool. My poem is called Water, Water. Lather of ocean, twist of river, dirty dishwater, water, daughter, cup and saucer, boiling kettle, steam whistle, cup to parched lips of the homeless, of the refugee, cup to parched lips of the desert, of the creek bed, rain brailing sand and mud, rain writing on rooftops, on many tongues, water, agua, vaten, Wasser, Voda, Vam. Ashes scattered over waves, brother, mother, lover, weight of water pressing down, on the brink of rain, on the brink of tears, like holding water in the palms of one's hands, washing hands for 2 minutes, for one Hail Mary, one happy birthday, songs sung by the water, hum, drum, and simmer, wings skimming water, light skimming water, light dancing on water, water fire, fire water, drench, drown, drunk. Reflection in a pond, and bubbles from a wand, black, blue, silver water under the moon and stars water, puddle-stained lane, rainbow oil slick, body hitting water, jumping from a bridge, rocks in the pocket water, water under the bridge, wishes in the well water, filtered, fluoridated, flushed water, chemical wastewater, carbonated, chlorinated, distilled water, funneled, poured, and puddled water, water from the faucet, water for chocolate, for crops, drip, drop water, born of water, thirst storming, warming waters, source, shortage, torture, slaughter for water, cistern, aqueduct, tongue, gullet, melting waters, rising tides, in over your head water. Thank you. Last, but certainly not least, Pegi Deitz Shea.
I'm so happy that I don't have to introduce anyone else at school. It's a blast. I am the inaugural Poet Laureate of Vernon, and I founded and direct the Poetry Rocks Poetry Reading Series, which Christine will read for us soon, and there are many poets in the audience who have read for it. I just realized this today, that my topic, which has to do with landfills and the poorest of the poor people who live near them, whether the landfills were placed there because it was cheap land, which is ecological discrimination, or whether this is the way that they can make money. They forage through these landfills, and there's a history of them avalanching and killing people. And it occurred to me today when I was rehearsing this that I was a garbage picker growing up. I lived for the days when, especially the big pickup days, and I would go and I'd look for toys. My parents spent all their money on our Catholic school education. And it was very hard to give up, but when my children were in the car and I saw a toy that would be perfect for them, and they said, "No, mother." So it's still very hard to resist. For Wasted Lives, I chose the form of a sestina, and I rarely write in form, but this form involves repeating 6 words over and over, and I feel that the form lends itself to topics that, especially difficult topics, that repeat over and over. So this is Wasted Lives, Addis Ababa, March 11, 2017. Outside Ethiopia's capital, the Repi landfill, full of 50 years of refuse, home to thousands of poor displaced by high-rises, mounts and mounts until it cannot anymore, and the waste avalanches, eliminating scores of lives. Ambassadors of the African Union live in the pricey city, taking their fill of fashion, food, and fun. They waste time debating while they refuse to deal with the people who mount the garbage, foraging for treasures, say misplaced remotes or uneaten crusts. They call the place kosha, meaning dust, meaning lives disintegrate beneath these mounts, meaning sloughed skin cells fill surrounding huts, meaning material refuse abides with its own kind, human waste. Some blame the collapse on plastic waste. Others blame the people who placed their homes too close, who refused to live acceptable lives. The poor blame those whose pockets are filled. They claim ecological discrimination. They mount protests against economic injustice. They mount tiny caskets on their shoulders. This waste of life, this way, is not new. In 2000, the Payatas landfill landslide, the Java avalanche in 2005. Guatemala City places the whole country's trash higher in priority than the 7,000 lives who breathe noxious gases released by its refuse. who fight the fires caused by methane, who refuse to conveniently die for what amounts to a pittance in taxes. Let's examine our lives. In the north end of Hartford, our mountain of waste is housed under a guise of grass. New York City placed its trash in fresh kills, Staten Island. China fills and sends barges with bulging amounts of waste to sea, where microfibers and plastic refuse replace lives in the marine food chain. Our seafood, our fill. Thank you, and thank you to Connecticut. Thank you to Connecticut Literary Festival. Thank you to Riverwood for sponsoring this event here. And thank you to Real Art Ways. It is so wonderful to be back. And thank you, poets, for reading so lovely.